Julian Sterling had a severe case of mysophobia. Believing I was unclean, the moment I stepped out of the car, he threw a jacket in my face. "I told you not to leave things in my car." "It's not mine," I said calmly. Before he could react, his driver informed him it belonged to another woman. Instantly, the disgust on his face vanished. He carefully picked up the jacket and folded it neatly. In that moment, I decided to leave him. When Julian Sterling threw that jacket in my face, besides us in the underground garage, there were the driver and 2 security guards. He frowned and took a half step back, as if he'd encountered something vile. "How many times have I told you not to leave your things in my car? Don't you understand?" The jacket's zipper scratched my cheekbone, and the sting of it made my vision go dark for a moment. I didn't cry or make excuses. I simply looked down at the light gray cashmere jacket and said calmly, "It's not mine." Before Julian could react, the driver, Marcus, quickly stepped forward and said, "Mr. Sterling, Miss Amelia Vance was here this afternoon. She must have forgotten it." Julian froze. In the next second, the disgust on his face vanished, as if someone had flipped a switch. "Amelia's health is frail," he murmured. He crouched down and gingerly lifted the jacket from the floor. First, he brushed off the dust, then smoothed the sleeves, and finally, after folding it carefully, placed it back on the rear seat. In that instant, I suddenly understood how filthy and ridiculous my 3-year marriage had been. After I said, "It's not mine," the garage fell silent, with only the hum of the ventilation system audible. Julian was half-crouched by the car door, holding the jacket sleeve with his fingertips. His movements were unusually gentle for him. He had severe mysophobia. In 3 years of marriage, he had never once touched the bag I brought home from my restoration studio. Before entering the house, I had to change my shoes, change my clothes, wash my hands, and disinfect them. If I brought even a speck of paper dust or the scent of adhesive on me, he would immediately frown. "Clara, can't you be more careful?" he would say. "It's very unhygienic." But now, this jacket, which had just fallen onto the floor of an underground garage covered in dust, tire marks, and dirty rainwater stains, didn't even make him flinch. The driver, Marcus, stood by the hood, his hands still on a suitcase, his expression extremely awkward. The 2 security guards, who had started to move toward us to help, froze in place when they saw Julian's face. I touched my cheekbone. The spot where the zipper had grazed me throbbed slightly. A trace of blood came away on my finger. Julian saw it. His gaze flickered, but he didn't come closer. He just placed the carefully folded jacket on the back seat. I looked at him. So, the jacket wasn't dirty. I was the one who was dirty. It wasn't about things being left in his car. It was about them being my things. I let out a very quiet scoff. Julian finally heard it and frowned, looking at me. "What are you laughing at?" "Nothing." I took out my phone and opened the cloud storage for the car's system. We had bought this car after our wedding. The insurance was under my account because Julian couldn't be bothered with it. I handled everything related to the car paperwork, maintenance, repairs. He didn't know that the dashcam footage and short in-cabin videos automatically synced to my phone. I pressed save. Julian saw my action. "What are you doing now?" he asked coldly. I turned off the screen. "Saving something." He frowned even more deeply. "Clara, don't make a scene." I had heard that phrase too many times. When my mother-in-law pointed at me and said that art restorers were nothing but dust, he'd say, "Don't make a scene." When Amelia called him in the middle of the night, saying she was scared, and he left me with a fever to go to her, and I questioned it, he'd say, "Don't make a scene." On my birthday, he accompanied Amelia to her therapist while I blew out the candles on my cake alone. When he returned, he only said, "She needs me more than you do. Be more mature." Now, after a jacket had hit me in the face, he was again telling me, "Don't make a scene." I looked down at the ring on my finger. 3 years ago, Julian had placed it there himself. His mysophobia was already severe back then, but he had been willing to take my hand and say, "Clara, I'm uncomfortable with others, but you're different." I believed him. I believed him until his "you're different" turned into "you need to be reasonable." I took off the ring and put it in my handbag. Julian saw this, and his expression finally changed. "Clara, what is the meaning of this?" I opened the car door and took out my canvas tote bag. He instinctively took a step back. My bag had just come from the studio. There were wood shavings on it. That single step was light, but it felt heavier than the jacket. "Julian, I get it now," I nodded. "And what is it you get now?" he asked impatiently. I didn't answer. I walked around him and headed for the elevator. Behind me, I heard Amelia's voice. Julian! She approached from another car, a black coat that Julian often wore draped over her shoulders. Her face was pale, her eyes red as if she had just been crying. She saw the red scratch on my face and, covering her mouth with her hand, exclaimed, Clara, are you hurt? Is it because of my jacket? Julian immediately turned his attention to her. Why did you come down? I told you to wait upstairs. I remembered I left my jacket in your car, Amelia said softly. I was afraid Clara would misunderstand. She looked at me, her gaze as soft as water. Clara, I'm so sorry. I wore this jacket today when I went to the hospital. It might smell like disinfectant. Please don't be upset. The hospital. My gaze fell on the jacket's pocket. When Julian had folded it, the corner of a piece of paper had peeked out, white with blue lettering. A payment receipt. I didn't try to see it, only looked at Julian. Her things can be left in your car? Julian's face darkened. Her health is frail. Must you really pick a fight about this right here? I was just asking. And what is there to ask? He rubbed the bridge of his nose in irritation. Clara, don't make yourself look so unbecoming. Fine, I nodded. A flash of triumph crossed Amelia's eyes. She moved toward Julian, intending to take the jacket, but Julian pulled his hand away. It fell on the floor. It's dirty. I'll have it cleaned. In that moment, I could barely contain my laughter. He was disgusted by the dirt from the floor, but he wasn't disgusted by her. He thought I was unbecoming but couldn't see the sheer absurdity of his own behavior. Before I entered the elevator, Marcus suddenly called out to me softly. Mrs. Sterling. I turned. Marcus glanced at Julian and then said quietly again. I saw everything. Marcus! Julian shouted sharply. Marcus fell silent. I smiled at him. Thank you. The elevator doors closed. The mirrored surface clearly reflected the red gash on my face. My phone vibrated a notification that the dashcam footage had been successfully saved. I named the file The Jacket, and then I turned off my location sharing. For 3 years, Julian had always known where I was. At the studio, the supermarket, the hospital, the Sterling estate, the pharmacy. I was like an automated home system, available on demand, quiet and clean. Now, the system was offline. The elevator arrived on the ground floor. As I walked out of the Sterling's underground garage, my phone vibrated again. A text from Julian. Come upstairs, don't make me say it twice. I looked at the message and pressed delete. A night wind blew, and the sting on my cheek was sobering. I didn't go upstairs. I went to a 24-hour copy center and printed out a divorce petition. When I returned to the Sterling mansion, it was almost 11 at night. The living room lights were on, and the familiar smell of disinfectant hung in the air. Julian was sitting on the sofa with a grim face. Amelia sat beside him, the very same jacket, now enclosed in a garment bag, resting on her lap. My mother-in-law, Eleanor, stood by the staircase with a shawl draped over her shoulders. Seeing me, the first thing she asked was, Where have you been? You smell of the street. I didn't take off my shoes, nor did I go to the mudroom by the entrance to disinfect my clothes as usual. I walked straight into the living room. Eleanor's face changed instantly. Clara, have you lost your mind? The carpet was just cleaned yesterday. Julian stood up, his voice tight with restrained anger. Go get changed. I looked at him. I won't. The living room fell silent. In 3 years of marriage, I had never refused him like this. Julian disliked it when I brought things from the studio into the house, so I changed by the door every day. He hated the smell of restoration adhesive, so I kept my work clothes in a sealed bag in the trunk of my car. He didn't like me touching his study, so I wore gloves even when I was looking for documents for him. I thought understanding was a form of love. I later realized that excessive understanding only becomes a stepping stone for others to walk all over you. Repeat what you said, Julian gritted out. I placed my tote bag on the coffee table. A little dust from its bottom settled on the marble surface, which was polished to a mirror shine. Get that off there, Eleanor shrieked. How filthy! Amelia immediately stood up. Aunt Eleanor, don't worry, I'll wipe it right now. She reached for a wet wipe, but Julian stopped her. Don't touch it. He turned to the housekeeper, Sophia. Disinfect it. Sophia came out of the kitchen, her expression complicated. She had worked at the Sterling house for 5 years. In the past 3 years, she had seen me give Eleanor her medicine at night, tidy up Julian's wine-stained suits after corporate parties, and silently retreat to the bathroom after being reprimanded for being unclean. She held a disinfectant spray but didn't move. There's no need, I said. I'm going upstairs to get my things. Your things? Julian sneered. Decided to run away from home again? I took the freshly printed divorce petition from my bag and placed it on the coffee table. My documents. What is that? Eleanor gasped. Amelia's fingers tightened slightly. Julian, seeing the cover sheet, grew grim. Clara, are you done playing games? I'm not playing, I said. I've prepared a preliminary draft. We can have our lawyers discuss the division of assets. He looked at me as if I were insane. And this is all because of a jacket? I met his eyes. Julian, do you really think this is just about a jacket? He didn't answer. Because he knew it wasn't. He just didn't want to admit it. Admitting it would mean admitting that for the past 3 years, his so-called misophobia, his rules, his necessary measures, were all directed solely at me. Clara, don't do this. Amelia's eyes turned red. This is all my fault. I shouldn't have left the jacket in the car. Julian didn't mean it. He's just very particular about hygiene. I looked at her. Then why, after being so particular, did he pick it up for you? She turned pale. Julian stepped in front of her, shielding her. That's enough. If you have a problem, take it up with me. Leave her out of it. He scoffed. I am taking it up with you. I pushed the petition toward him. Sign it. Julian's eyes blazed with anger. He snatched the document and, without looking at it, tore it in half. The scraps of paper fluttered to the floor. Eleanor breathed a sigh of relief and immediately let out a cold smirk. A divorce? And you think you can manage? Clara, who helped you find a hospital for your mother's surgery? When your studio was on the verge of bankruptcy, who allowed you to live in the Sterling house? You should be grateful. She had said this many times, and every time I had remained silent. Because my mother had indeed undergone a major surgery 3 years ago, and Julian had indeed helped me connect with specialists. But I had paid for the surgery by selling the old house my grandmother left me. And I had paid for her subsequent treatment myself, earning every penny. He made one phone call, and the Sterling family took 3 years of my life. I didn't explain. Explanations should be saved for when they matter. I bent down, collected the torn pieces of the petition, and put them in my bag. Clara, I'm giving you 1 day to cool off, Julian said coldly, watching my actions. I am perfectly calm. I turned and went upstairs to the bedroom. At the master bedroom door lay a light gray, plush rug that Julian had specially ordered. He said street dust couldn't be brought into the bedroom, so for all 3 years, I had to stop at the threshold before entering, as if waiting for permission. Today, I didn't stop. I pushed the door open and walked in. I opened the closet. My clothes occupied a narrow section on the left. His suits dark, sorted by color, material, and season hung in perfect order. A tie given to him by Amelia lay on the jewelry tray. And the cufflinks I had given him were in the furthest corner of a drawer in an unopened box. I packed my documents, bank cards, studio keys, medical records, and a flash drive into a suitcase. The flash drive contained electronic records of all the Sterling family's household and medical expenses for the past 3 years. I used to keep these records to make sure nothing was missed. Now, they would be my leverage to leave. My phone lit up a message from an unknown number. It was a photo of Amelia in Julian's black coat, standing in his study. On the desk was a glass of warm water. This was Julian's private study, a place I, his wife, only entered with gloves on. Yet Amelia could stroll in there wearing his clothes and drink from his glass. Beneath the photo was a single line. Clara, only clean people are allowed to stand beside him. I saved the photo, blocked the number, and then opened my suitcase to put one last thing inside. Clara, open up. Julian's voice came from outside the door. I closed the suitcase. I'm going to sleep. There was a moment of silence from the other side. This is my room, he hissed, suppressing his rage. I looked at the empty bed and suddenly laughed. You're right. That's why I'm moving out tomorrow. The next morning, Julian didn't go to the office. He sat at the head of the dining table, a cup of black coffee in front of him. When I came downstairs, he looked up, his gaze falling on my suitcase. Are you serious? Yes. Eleanor was just instructing Sophia on how to arrange breakfast on the plates. Hearing this, she slammed her fork down. Clara, don't try to scare us with a divorce. We have a family dinner tonight. Amelia's coming too. Tidy yourself up. I stopped. She's coming. Why do I need to tidy myself up? She's a guest, and you are my son's wife. Eleanor's face darkened. If you make a scene and embarrass a guest, you'll shame all of us. Mom, that's enough. Julian rubbed the bridge of his nose. He looked at me, his tone softening. Let's talk after dinner. I understood his plan. He wanted me to maintain appearances in public, and then in private, He would dismiss me with a, "You misunderstood." I would have played along before. I was afraid of upsetting my parents, afraid of gossip, afraid of admitting that my 3-year marriage was a failure. But now, the only thing I was afraid of was continuing to rot here. "I'll be there," I said. Julian's face relaxed slightly. He thought I had given in. At 7 in the evening, the Sterling's country estate was ablaze with lights. All the relatives had gathered. Amelia arrived before I did. She was wearing a white dress with one of Julian's spare shirts draped over it. I recognized the shirt. There was a small, silver hidden button on the cuff that I had sewn on last year. Back then, he had been disgusted by the smell of adhesive on my hands and made me wash them 3 times before allowing me to touch it. Now, Amelia was wearing that shirt, sitting next to Eleanor and receiving compliments. "Just as beautiful as when you were a child. Julian, you must take good care of her. Amelia, now that you're back, you should stay. What could be better than being home?" When I walked in, the laughter momentarily died down. Eleanor looked me up and down. "Why are you dressed like that? You can't even dress up for a family dinner." I was wearing a dark, long dress. There were faint, indelible traces of paint from my restoration work on the cuffs, but it was clean. "Auntie, Clara works hard. Perhaps she didn't have time to change," Amelia immediately said. That sentence, uttered so lightly, cast me in an unfavorable light. Julian, sitting beside her, said nothing. I found an empty seat and sat down. It was the furthest seat from Julian. He noticed and frowned slightly. As dinner began, Amelia suddenly started coughing. Julian immediately put down his silverware. "What's wrong?" "Nothing," she said quietly. "I think I caught a chill." Julian stood up and draped his suit jacket over her shoulders. The movement was so natural, as if practiced to perfection. Several older relatives at the table exchanged glances and smiled. Someone joked, "Julian still dotes on Amelia just as much." "Clara, don't be offended," Eleanor said, deliberately looking at me. "They grew up together. They have a special bond." I served myself some vegetable salad. "I'm not offended." Julian looked at me, clearly displeased with my composure. Amelia, head down, smiled and then suddenly said, "Clara, I wanted to apologize to you. You and Julian argued yesterday because of that jacket, right?" The table fell silent. "It was all my fault," she continued. "I know Julian has mysophobia and doesn't like other people's things in his car, but I felt dizzy and forgot to take it with me." Before she could finish, Julian said, "It's not your fault." I put down my fork. "Then whose fault is it?" "Clara, don't be sarcastic at a family dinner." Julian looked at me coldly. "I'm just asking. She left her jacket in your car, it's not her fault. But the fact that I was hit with that jacket, that's me being sarcastic? Julian, is this a family dinner or my trial?" "What is that tone?" Eleanor demanded, outraged. "Clara, don't blame Julian." Amelia's eyes immediately reddened. "He really didn't mean to hit you yesterday. He just thought it was your thing." After saying this, she seemed to realize she had misspoken and hastily covered her mouth. But everyone at the table understood. He thought it was my thing, so it was okay to throw it. He found out it was hers, so it had to be cherished. "Amelia!" Julian's face changed. I laughed. That stated quite clearly. I took the second divorce petition from my bag. This time, it wasn't a simple draft from the copy center, but the official document my lawyer, Vera, had sent me that afternoon. I placed it on the Lazy Susan and gave it a gentle push. The document glided over to Julian. "Since everyone is here, let them be witnesses." "Clara!" Eleanor shot to her feet. Julian grabbed the document, his gaze icy. "Do you have to take it this far?" "I'm not taking it anywhere." I looked at him. "I'm notifying you." He slammed the petition onto the table. "I don't agree." "Then we'll go to court." After those words, a dead silence fell over the table. Julian stared at me as if seeing me for the first time. He had always thought I couldn't survive without him. Without the Sterling home, without the status of Mrs. Sterling, without the crumbs of affection he occasionally gave me. But he forgot. I had never lived off his money. "Clara, did you misunderstand something between Julian and me?" Amelia suddenly began to cry. "I can leave. I'll never see him again. Please don't get a divorce because of me." She stood up, her body swaying. Julian immediately supported her. "Don't move." She leaned against his chest, tears streaming down her face. The scene was so touching, like a pair of tragic lovers cornered by a villainess like me. "Look what you've done to her." Eleanor pointed a finger at me. I picked up my bag. "Then I won't do it anymore." "Where are you going?" Julian's low voice called out. "To Miss Studio." If you dare walk out that door today, you don't have to come back. I stopped and, turning around, looked at him. Fine. This time I left no room for anyone. I walked to the entryway. Behind me, the whispers of relatives began. What a temper! Julian put up with her for 3 years. Good on him. She's a restorer, right? Spends all day with old junk, no wonder her personality is strange. The door opened, and a night wind rushed in. I heard Julian say from behind me, Clara, you'll come back and beg me. I didn't turn back, because my ride had already arrived. Vera was behind the wheel, and rolling down the window waved at me. Clara, let's go. I got in the car. The moment the door closed, the lights of the Sterling estate were left behind. You're sure you're not going back? Vera looked at my face. I fastened my seatbelt. I'm not going back. My phone vibrated. A message from Julian. Without the Sterling family, you are nothing. I took a screenshot, sent it to Vera, and added it to my evidence folder. I moved back into my small apartment on the second floor of my studio. The room was small, a bed, an old desk, a row of restoration tools. The air smelled of paper, wood, and a slightly bitter adhesive. Julian hated that smell. But I slept the most peaceful night I'd had in 3 years. At 7 in the morning, the phone rang. It was Eleanor. I didn't answer. At 8, Sophia called. I picked up. Mrs. Sterling. Her voice was anxious. What is Mrs. Eleanor's blood pressure medication? Her head was spinning this morning, and Miss Amelia can't find it. I sat up in bed. 3rd shelf in the medicine cabinet, blue label. Take it 30 minutes after a meal. Her pressure was high last week. She shouldn't have strong tea today. Okay, Sophia said with relief. After a pause, she added quietly, Mrs. Sterling, when are you coming back? I looked at the light outside the window. Sophia, I'm not going back there anymore. There was silence on the other end. I'll prepare and send you all the care notes, I continued. Let Julian hire a professional caregiver. After hanging up, I exported all the care spreadsheets from the last 3 years. Dates, medication times, checkup times, allergies, doctor's phone numbers, a total of 78 pages. I sent them to Julian. 5 minutes later, he replied, What is this supposed to mean? I wrote back, a handover of duties. He didn't reply again. At 10, the property management company called. Mrs. Sterling, it's time for the maintenance on the central water purification system at the mansion. You always used to schedule it. Should we contact Mr. Sterling this time? Contact Mr. Sterling. At 11, the dry cleaner called. Mrs. Sterling, Mr. Sterling's suits are ready. Should we deliver to the old address? Please remove my association with all orders from the Sterling family. At 2 in the afternoon, the hospital's physical therapy department reminded me of Eleanor's scheduled checkup. I forwarded the call to Julian. At 4, a secretary from Julian's company called. Mrs. Sterling, Mr. Sterling is going on a business trip tomorrow. Where is his passport? I don't know, I replied. But you always used to, the secretary stammered. The past is the past. I hung up. In the studio, my assistant, Leo, peeked out from behind a shelf. Clara, you have such a powerful aura today. I was restoring an antique ledger from the late 19th century. I guess I slept well, I smiled. Did he hit you? Leo asked, looking at the scratch on my face. He didn't hit me. I told him he threw the jacket. Leo got so angry he nearly broke a pair of tweezers. That is hitting. I said nothing. In the past, I would have made excuses for Julian, too. He has mysophobia, he's under stress, he's just blunt, he doesn't mean any harm. But in truth, whether someone has malicious intent is not determined by what they say, but by whether they see your pain. Julian saw my pain. He just didn't care. That evening, Vera came to the studio. She handed me a document. I've revised the divorce petition. You're not claiming his fortune, but you shouldn't lose what's yours either. And also the video from the garage, the audio recording from the family dinner, the screenshots of the texts you need to save multiple copies. Okay, can we use the jacket incident? I nodded. We can, Vera said. It might not be the direct cause for the divorce, but it proves a pattern of psychological abuse and misconduct in the marriage. You're not trying to sue him for money. You want everyone to see the truth. I looked at the video on my computer. The quality was excellent. Julian throwing the jacket in my face. Me saying, "It's not mine." Him crouching down, picking it up, folding it neatly. Every movement was like a stab with a knife. At 9 that night, Julian finally arrived. He stood at the entrance of the studio, not stepping inside. Near the door were several pots of plant fibers for paper pulp experiments, and there were wood shavings on the floor. "You live in a place like this?" He frowned. Without taking off my gloves, I continued restoring a page of the book. "This is my studio. Come back." I said I'm not coming back. "Clara, I'm very tired today," he said, restraining his anger. "I'm not in the mood to persuade you." I looked up at him. "Then don't." He was taken aback. In the past, the moment he said he was tired, I would have fallen silent, poured him water, drawn him a bath, ironed his suit for the next day. Now, I just lowered my head and continued working. He took a step forward but stopped because of the shavings on the floor. "Mom almost took the wrong medicine today." "Then you should hire a caregiver. You know she's only used to you." "She's not used to me," I said. "She's used to free, attentive, on-demand help. Do you have to be so harsh?" Julian's face twisted in anger. The truth is usually unpleasant. He stared at me for a long time and suddenly asked, "Is this all because of Amelia?" I laughed. "Julian, don't shift the blame to her. She only helped me see who you really are." He fell silent, but just then, his phone rang. He answered it. Amelia's weak voice came through the receiver. "Julian, am I bothering you? I was looking for my shawl and I can't find it. The one my mother left me, I'm so scared." Julian looked at me. "What shawl?" "The one I had at your parents' house yesterday," Amelia cried. "I left it on the sofa." Then, the only person who went near it was Clara. The tweezers in my hand froze. Julian hung up and looked at me. "Do you have her shawl?" I took off my gloves. "Are you suspecting me of stealing it?" "I'm just asking," he said. I put down the gloves and looked at him coldly. "Julian, you'd better think carefully before you ask that question a second time." Julian did not ask the question a second time, but his silence had already asked it for him. The next morning, Amelia posted a photo on social media. In it, she was sitting in the Sterling's living room, her eyes red and swollen, holding an empty clothing bag. The caption read, "Some things are precious not because of their price, but because of the memories. I hope whoever took it will return it to me." She didn't name anyone, but among their mutual friends were many of the Sterling's relatives. Within half an hour, I received 3 sarcastic messages. "Clara, I hear you took Amelia's thing? Marital squabbles shouldn't involve outsiders. That shawl is a memory of her mother. You've crossed a line." I didn't reply to any of them. At lunch, Leo handed me his phone. "Clara, look at this." Amelia had posted again. She wrote that she was going to a charity exhibition of restored artworks that evening and hoped to find her mother's lost shawl there. Attached to the post was a flyer for the exhibition, which my studio had restored pieces for. I understood everything. She didn't want the shawl. She wanted to publicly brand me with 2 labels, thief and filthy. At 3 in the afternoon, I went to the exhibition. It was organized by the City Museum in collaboration with several private collectors. I was responsible for restoring 2 ancient books and 1 textile exhibit. The moment I entered the staff area, I saw Amelia standing by a display case. A few of the Sterling's relatives and Julian were crowded around her. "Why did you come?" He frowned upon seeing me. I found it amusing. My name was on the flyer, and he was asking me why I came. "Clara, I didn't want to make a fuss," Amelia said, her eyes red. "It's just that this shawl is very important to me." "Are you sure I took it?" I asked. She bit her lip. "I didn't say that." "You didn't," one of the relatives sneered. "But yesterday she was the only outsider who left with a sour face. Who else could it be?" "Outsider." After 3 years of marriage, I was still an outsider in the Sterling house. "Clara, if you have it, just return it, and we'll be done with this," Julian said quietly. I looked at him. "And if I don't?" "Then explain yourself," he replied after a second's hesitation. "Why should I have to explain something I didn't do?" "Julian, forget it." Tears welled up in Amelia's eyes. I must have been mistaken. The more she said, "Forget it," the more contemptuous the onlookers' gazes became. Just then, an exhibition staff member ran in. "This is bad. Miss Vance's shawl has been found, but it's stained with paint." Everyone immediately headed to the restoration workshop. On the table lay the very same light beige shawl, now with a large blue-green stain on it. Next to it was a box of mineral paints that I often use. Seeing the shawl, Amelia swayed and nearly fainted. Julian supported her and shot me an icy glare. "Clara." Those 2 words sounded so heavy. I stood in the doorway and suddenly stopped feeling any pain, because it was too absurd. I walked over to the table. Without touching the shawl, I just glanced at the paint box. "This box isn't mine." "Not yours again." Julian sneered coldly. He was clearly remembering the jacket. Clara, I know you hate me, Amelia sobbed. But you can't do this to my mother's memory. Apologize. Julian lowered his voice. I raised my head. What did you say? I said apologize. It doesn't matter if you did it on purpose or not. This is what happened. I looked at him. This was him, Julian. The truth didn't matter. My feelings didn't matter. Amelia was crying, so I had to bow my head. I took out my phone and called the exhibition director. Mr. Harrison, would you please provide the entry and exit logs for the staff areas and the security camera footage from the restoration workshop? Clara, don't make things worse. Julian's face changed. I'm not the one making things worse. 10 minutes later, an image lit up a small screen in the hall. There were cameras in the restoration workshop. I had requested them 3 months ago because the exhibits were valuable, and all materials were logged. The video showed Amelia's assistant entering the staff area at 2:47 p.m. with a paper bag. At 2:52 p.m., she left the shawl in the restoration workshop. At 3:06 p.m., she opened the box of paints and poured them onto the shawl. It was all crystal clear. A dead silence fell over the room. Amelia was as white as a sheet. Her assistant trembled. It wasn't me, Miss Amelia asked me to. Shut up, Amelia cut her off sharply. I opened another document. This box of paints was brought in by your assistant today. It's not in our inventory log. The paint composition is also different. My mineral paints are cataloged as S17. These are common craft store paints. I looked at Julian. Do I still need to apologize? His face darkened with fury. Julian, I didn't know, it really wasn't me, Amelia cried, grabbing his sleeve. I was just so scared the shawl was lost. Julian didn't push her away. He looked at me and said hollowly, You've proven your innocence. You don't need to crush her further. Hearing those words, I suddenly felt completely calm. I was proving my innocence because you all slandered me. Step by step, you schemed to frame me, and now you're saying I'm crushing her? Her jacket was left in your car, you said. Her health was frail. She wears your clothes in your private study, you said. I misunderstood. Julian, you don't have mysophobia. You just believe I don't deserve to be treated cleanly by you. No one in the hall said a word. His face slowly paled. I took the list of evidence from the table and handed it to the director. Please proceed as the exhibition rules dictate. The issue was slander and property damage in a work area of the exhibition. I will have my lawyer contact you. Amelia's crying stopped. She hadn't expected me to actually pursue justice. Clara! Julian tried to stop me. Amelia's health is frail. She won't withstand an investigation. I looked at his hand. He had touched my sleeve. It was one of the rare times he had touched me in 3 years. But it only made me feel disgusted. I took a step back. Then she should learn not to cause trouble for others. Amelia did not face immediate punishment. Julian smoothed over the incident at the exhibition. The assistant was fired, the shawl was sent for restoration, and Amelia posted on social media, "A misunderstanding has been resolved. Thank you for your concern," as if nothing had happened. Julian called me 7 times. I didn't answer a single one. The 8th call was from the hospital. Is this a relative of Eleanor Sterling? The patient is having an allergic reaction to her medication. She's in the emergency room. I gripped the phone and was silent for 2 seconds. I am no longer her primary contact. Please contact her son, Julian Sterling. Mr. Sterling is not answering his phone, the nurse said. You are listed as the first emergency contact in her file. I closed my eyes. A 3-year habit not so easy to break. When I arrived at the hospital, Eleanor was lying on a gurney in the ER, her face pale. Julian stood by the bed, still in his suit, with an uncharacteristically lost expression. Beside him stood Amelia, sobbing. Who gave the patient her medication? The doctor asked. I did, Amelia said quietly. Aunt Eleanor felt unwell, so I gave her a pill, just like it said on the bottle. She's allergic to this component, the doctor frowned. It's clearly marked in her chart. I didn't know, Amelia paled. She didn't do it on purpose, Julian said immediately. I stood in the doorway, and hearing this, I almost laughed. Not on purpose, again. Those words were simply a protective charm for Amelia. Clara, you're here, the doctor said with relief upon seeing me. Did you bring her detailed medication records? I handed him a folder. Here's the hard copy. I sent the electronic version to Julian as well. The doctor opened the folder and nodded. Very complete records. Allergy history, checkups, blood pressure fluctuations, it's all here. Good thing you brought it in time. Eleanor opened her eyes. Seeing me, the first thing she did was reproach me. Why weren't you home? If you had been, I wouldn't have taken the wrong medicine. I looked at her. She was weak and pitiful, an IV in her hand. In the past, the moment she got sick, my heart would have softened. I would have cooked broth, sat by her bedside, managed her medication, and accompanied her to checkups. She was verbally disgusted by me, but in practice, she had long grown accustomed to my care. I sent all the care records to Julian 3 days ago, I said. Julian's face tensed. You didn't look at them? I looked at him. He remained silent. Julian has been very busy these past few days, Amelia explained, crying. I thought I could take care of his aunt. You thought? I cut her off. You're caring for someone with hypertension, drug allergies, and sleep disorders based on you thought? Her tears flowed even harder. Clara, now is not the time to argue, Julian frowned. Then when is? Must you make a scene in a hospital? I didn't come here to make a scene, I scoffed. I took out a contact change form from my bag and handed it to the nurse. Please change the primary emergency contact to her son, and all further questions about her health, please direct them to Mr. Sterling. The nurse looked flustered and glanced at Julian. Julian's face was grim. Clara? I ignored him. I placed another list on the bedside table. These are the expenses I paid for over the last 3 years. Caregiving, medication, checkups, dietary food. I'll forward the receipts to my lawyer. You don't have to pay them back, but at least don't ever say I owe the Sterling family anything again. Eleanor's trembling hand took the list. The longer she looked, the paler her face became. Wasn't it Julian who paid for this? No, I said. The room fell silent. Julian looked at the list. Every amount had a payment confirmation. Some were for a few $1,000s, some for tens of thousands. Over 3 years, it had added up to a considerable sum. But your mother's surgery, Eleanor's lips moved. I paid for my mother's surgery by selling my house, I said. Julian helped me make one phone call. I remember that favor. And for the past 3 years, I have repaid it in full. Clara, no one asked you to repay it, Julian finally spoke. Your mother constantly reminded me to be grateful, I said, looking at Eleanor. Eleanor's face contorted with anger. Clara, Mrs. Sterling is still sick, Amelia said softly. Why calculate everything so meticulously? I looked at her. From now on, everything will be calculated. Julian's expression was complex, as if something had finally cracked. But it was too late. The doctor asked a family member to stay for observation. Julian instinctively looked at me. In the past, I would have definitely stayed. I would have sent him home to rest and sat by the bed all night myself. But this time, after handing the medical history to the doctor, I turned and left. Clara! Julian caught up with me in the hallway. I stopped. Mom was just overwrought. His voice grew softer. Amelia didn't mean it either. Can't you be so heartless? I turned around. The white light of the hallway fell on his face. This was the face I had loved for many years. Now it seemed alien. Julian, I am heartless because you have drained all the blood out of me, drop by drop. He froze. I pressed the elevator button. The door opened, and I stepped inside. This time, he had no right to ask me to stay. I didn't want to go to the charity gala. But the exhibition director, Mr. Harrison, called me personally. He said the project to restore the ancient books needed to be presented, and the museum wanted me to speak as the representative of the restorers. I agreed, not for the Sterling family, for myself. The dinner was held at the Waterfront Hotel on the 3rd floor. Bright lights, a pyramid of champagne glasses, glittering gold. I wore a long black dress, my hair tied in a bun. There were no rings on my hands. Without the wedding band, my fingers felt lighter. The moment I checked in, the wife of Julian's cousin approached me. Clara, you're here too? Her voice was full of anticipation for drama. She glanced around. And where's Julian? Not with you? Before I could answer, a low murmur of admiration came from the entrance. Julian had arrived. He was in a dark suit, with Amelia by his side. Draped over Amelia's shoulders was the same light gray cashmere jacket that had once hit me in the face. She wore light makeup, looked much better than she had at the hospital, and held Julian's arm as if she were the true hostess of the evening. Julian, upon seeing me, froze for a moment. Amelia noticed me too. She smiled slightly and adjusted the collar of the jacket with her fingertips. A provocation without words. A single gesture. They say Julian has been taking Amelia to all her doctor's appointments lately, his cousin's wife whispered in my ear. Is everything okay in your family? It will be soon, I replied evenly. She was taken aback. Just then, The host began introducing the guests. Julian, as a representative of a sponsoring company, was invited to the front row. Amelia sat next to him. I sat at the restorer's table, 3 rows behind them. The perfect distance for our current relationship. Midway through the dinner, the host invited Julian to the stage for a speech. He spoke very gracefully about how their company valued traditional culture and was committed to supporting restoration. The room applauded. Then the host added with a smile, Miss Amelia Vance, who is accompanying Mr. Sterling tonight, is also a great supporter of charity. We hear there's a very heartwarming story associated with the jacket she's wearing. Amelia feigned a slight blush, then said softly, It's nothing special. Julian just knows I get cold easily, so he had it specially cleaned and prepared for me. As she said this, she glanced at me. Someone in the audience joked, What a thoughtful Mr. Sterling. Julian didn't deny it. He just looked at me. His gaze was a warning. Don't make a scene at an event like this. I silently took a sip of water. Mr. Harrison, sitting next to me, asked quietly, Are you okay? I'm fine, I replied. I would no longer fall to pieces in front of everyone just because he preferred someone else. Because I had already collected all the broken shards and filed them away in my evidence folder. Soon, it was my turn to take the stage. And now, the host announced, Please welcome the youngest lead restorer of this project, Miss Clara Hayes. The applause was not as loud as it was for Julian. But when I stepped onto the stage and the spotlight hit me, I suddenly saw Julian straighten his back. Perhaps he had never seen me at work. On the screen, photos appeared of the before and after of the restoration. Decayed pages, mold, broken threads. I explained, page by page. Restoration is not about completely erasing the traces of time. It's about determining which scars should be preserved and which damage should be repaired. The room was quiet. I clicked to the last slide. It was an old family ledger. Before restoration, it was covered in stains, the text almost illegible. Some things appear dirty not because they are inherently base, I said, but because they have absorbed too much of other people's dust. After those words, I saw Julian's expression change. Amelia's smile froze on her lips. I didn't look at them. After finishing my presentation, I heard Mr. Harrison be the first to applaud. In the second half of the evening, several collectors approached me to discuss collaborations. I stood in the crowd, exchanging business cards, when Julian walked up. The first thing he asked was, What did you mean by that? I put away a business card. The literal meaning. Clara, this is an official event. That's why I'm behaving officially. Amelia came over and said quietly, Clara, are you still upset about the jacket? If it bothers you, I can take it off. She started to unbutton it, but Julian stopped her. There's no need. He looked at me. It's just a thing. How long are you going to hold on to this? I laughed. Julian, rest assured, I will remember it until the day our divorce is finalized. His face finally darkened completely. Just then, Vera sent me a message. Evidence package is ready. The divorce petition can be officially filed. We can also send a lawyer's letter to Amelia regarding the exhibition incident. I replied, We'll handle it tomorrow. Looking up, I saw Julian still staring at me. You've become such a stranger, he said suddenly. I nodded. That's because I've stopped contorting myself to fit your world. A flash of panic crossed Amelia's eyes. She seemed to realize for the first time that I wasn't fighting for his affection. I was leaving, and I was leaving for good. The next morning, Vera and I went to the law firm. When the official divorce petition was printed, I looked at the names Clara Hayes Sterling and Julian Sterling and didn't feel the pain I had expected. There was only the weariness of something finally coming to an end. Are you sure? Vera handed me a pen. I've been sure for a long time, I said as I signed the document. The agreement stipulated that premarital assets would remain with each party, and marital property would be divided according to the law. I made no claim on the Sterling mansion or Julian's company shares, but I demanded reimbursement for the significant family expenses I had paid during the 3 years of marriage, and I wanted Amelia held accountable for the incident at the exhibition. You're not greedy, but don't let them think you're a pushover, Vera said. I used to be so afraid of being seen as greedy, I smirked. That afternoon, Julian received the letter from my lawyer. He came straight to the studio. It was raining, and his shoulders were wet. He would never have allowed himself to look so disheveled before. I was in the middle of touching up an antique painting and didn't let him into the restoration area. If you have something to say it here. He was clutching the letter in his hand. Are you serious? His voice was icy. I've said it many times. You want me to pay you back? Not you, the Sterling family, I corrected him. The accounts are clearly itemized. You can refuse to acknowledge them, and I can take it to court. Clara, we're married. He sounded as if he'd been electrocuted. Not for much longer. He stared at me. Must you turn feelings into invoices? I put down my brush. Julian, when you were disgusted by me, why didn't you think about feelings? When your mother demanded gratitude from me, why didn't you think about feelings? When Amelia slandered me, why didn't you think about feelings? He was speechless. The rain drummed against the glass. A long time passed before he said, I admit, what I did with the jacket was terrible. It was his first admission, but my heart didn't stir. Some apologies are like expired medicine. Even if you swallow them, they won't heal old wounds. I said. And that's your only reaction? He frowned. What should it be? Thank you for finally admitting you threw a jacket in my face? His face contorted with anger. Just then, my phone buzzed. A text from the bank. The supplementary credit card I had used during the marriage had been blocked. I glanced at it and laughed. Julian saw it too, his face froze. That wasn't me. If not you, then it was Eleanor. I opened a drawer, took out that very card, and cut it in half with a pair of scissors. Just as well, I don't use it anymore. Julian watched my actions, and for the first time, a flicker of panic appeared in his eyes. He probably thought that by blocking the card he would force me to bow my head. But he forgot. In those 3 years, I had barely spent any of the Sterling's money. My studio, though small, had always been profitable. My mother's condition had stabilized after her surgery. I was not a canary in a gilded cage. I had just once voluntarily folded my own wings. Clara, you weren't like this before, Julian said quietly. I used to love you, I said calmly. Now I don't. He froze completely. It was the first time I had said I didn't love him. No tears, no shouting, no resentment, just stating a fact. The words hit him, catching him completely off guard. The phone rang again. A message from Amelia. Clara, can we meet? I want to talk about Julian. I turned the screen toward Julian. Your darling is looking for me. His face darkened. He reached for my phone, but I pulled it away. Julian, we are only discussing the divorce right now. The rest doesn't concern me. Don't meet with her. He lowered his voice. I looked up at him. Why? He didn't answer. Perhaps he himself vaguely suspected that Amelia wasn't as innocent as she seemed, but he was afraid to find out. Because finding out would mean admitting that his preferences all these years had been a joke. I replied to Amelia. 7 o'clock, the Stonebridge Cafe. Clara, Julian looked at me. You can't stop me. I put my phone away. He stood by the door. Raindrops dripped from his umbrella onto the floor. In the past, he would have immediately winced at the mess. This time, he didn't seem to notice. Too bad I no longer needed this belated change. I chose the Stonebridge Cafe myself. The main dining area had security cameras, and the tables were spaced far apart. Perfect for a conversation. When I arrived, Amelia was already sitting by the window. Today, she wasn't in white, but in a light gray pantsuit, looking elegant and sophisticated. 2 cups of coffee were on the table. She pushed one toward me. Clara, I remember you like Americanos. I didn't touch it. Get to the point. She smiled. You really have changed. You used to be so polite to me. I used to think you had a conscience. The smile froze on her face. She leaned back in her chair, and the mask of meekness slowly slipped away. Clara, since you're being so direct, I won't beat around the bush either. A divorce is fine, but you won't get any money from the Sterling family, and you won't sue me. I looked at her. On what grounds are you giving me conditions? On the grounds that Julian cares about me. Her voice finally laced with unconcealed triumph. You know, he wasn't always like this. As a child, his misophobia was even worse. He was disgusted by anyone who touched him, but he never pushed me away. I listened calmly. You think you lived with him for 3 years and won? Amelia continued. Clara, you were just a suitable wife, but I am the special one in his heart. So you left that jacket in the car on purpose? I asked, deliberately lowering my voice to sound defeated. Did you really have to go to such lengths just to humiliate me? She smiled, clearly relishing her supposed victory. On the screen of my phone, which was lying on the table, a red recording dot was lit. It wasn't a secret recording. Vera had advised me that for the purpose of protecting my legal rights, recording conversations relevant to me could serve as evidence. Besides, the cafe had cameras. Amelia didn't know. Blinded by her arrogance, She thought I was still the same Clara who could be manipulated with a few words. I didn't do it to humiliate you, Clara. I just wanted to see what Julian would do, she said, picking up her cup and stirring her coffee lightly, dropping her guard completely. And you saw the result. He thought it was your thing and was disgusted. He found out it was mine and immediately picked it up. My fingers tightened slightly, not because it hurt, but because that scene flashed before my eyes again. But I quickly relaxed. Amelia, completely unaware that she was handing me the evidence I needed, continued with a dismissive scoff. And the incident at the exhibition was my assistant's own doing. I just let her take the fall. Even if you sue, it won't get to me. Really? Of course, she scoffed. Clara, you have no connections, no support from the Sterling family. Do you think some little restorer can compete with anyone? At that, I finally laughed. Amelia, you're very afraid of my divorce. Her face changed. Afraid? She repeated. If you were truly confident that Julian would choose you, you wouldn't be rushing me to leave with nothing, and you wouldn't be asking me not to sue. Her gaze turned cold. I just don't like unnecessary trouble. No, I looked at her. You're afraid I'll calculate everything. You're afraid the Sterling family will find out that their comfortable life for the past 3 years was largely supported by me. You're afraid Julian will discover that besides making him feel sorry for you, you can't give him anything. Stop acting so smart. Amelia slammed her cup down, splashing coffee. I took a napkin and wiped the drop from the table. You see, when something gets dirty, you can just wipe it clean. You don't have to grind someone into the filth. Don't play the saint, she sneered. You just can't accept it. Before, yes, I admit it, not anymore. She stared at me. Now, all I want is for you to pay what you owe, I said. Those words made her turn pale. She stood up, leaned toward me, and hissed. Clara, do you think you'll live well after leaving Julian? Doesn't your mother's treatment cost money? Doesn't your studio need resources? One word from Julian, and you won't get a single contract in this city. I looked up at her. I'll pass that sentence on to my lawyer as well. She froze. I picked up my phone and stopped the recording. You were recording? Amelia's face went white as a sheet. You said a lot of important things. She tried to snatch the phone, but I dodged. A waiter immediately approached. Can I help you? Amelia froze on the spot. I stood up and paid the bill. As I left, I looked at her. Amelia, keep that jacket. It will make another appearance at the Sterling's anniversary party. Fear finally flickered in her eyes. On the way to the studio, I received an invitation. Julian's grandmother's 80th birthday. Eleanor had personally ordered it to be delivered. Tucked inside the invitation was a note. If you still consider yourself part of this family, come and apologize to Amelia. I took a photo of the note and sent it to Vera. She replied, the chain of evidence is complete. See you at the party. I watched the city lights flash by the window. 3 years ago, I had walked into the Sterling house in a wedding dress. Everyone said I was lucky. 3 years later, I would walk in there in my own clothes. And I would take back the dignity they had stripped from me. Julian's grandmother's birthday was a grand affair. The hotel ballroom was laid with a red carpet, and baskets of flowers stood at the entrance. When I arrived, most of the guests had already gathered. Eleanor, standing at the entrance, scowled when she saw me. So you remembered after all. I handed her a gift box. It's Grandma's birthday. I came to congratulate her. Don't think that by pretending to be obedient, you can fix everything, she sneered. You will apologize to Amelia later. Don't embarrass us in front of everyone. For the jacket or for the shawl? I asked. Eleanor's face tensed. Clara, a woman should be sensible. She lowered her voice. Julian has been having a hard time lately. Must you push for a divorce? What will people think? The Sterling family. And what will people think? I looked at her. That it's because I'm making a scene? Or because you're doing indecent things? She trembled with rage. You. Julian came out of the ballroom. Seeing me, he gave me a complex look. Amelia was not by his side today, but she was nearby. In a light-colored evening gown, with that very same light gray jacket draped over her shoulders, as if deliberately reminding me who the real person protected by the Sterling family was today. When the party began, Grandma sat at the main table. She was elderly and hard of hearing, but she had always been kind to me. I went to congratulate her. Clara, you've lost weight. Grandma took my hand. She was the first person that evening to treat me like a human being. My eyes stung. I wish you a long life and good health. Mom, we have important business today, Eleanor coughed. What business? Grandma frowned. Eleanor stood up and took the microphone. Today, while all our friends and family are here, I want to say a few words about family matters." The ballroom fell silent. I sat in my seat, unmoving. Vera sat in a corner and gave me a barely perceptible nod. "Clara joined the Sterling family 3 years ago," Eleanor said, looking at me. "We believe we have not wronged her in any way, but recently, due to a small misunderstanding, she has initiated a divorce, brought turmoil into our home, and dragged an innocent Amelia into it." Amelia lowered her head, her shoulders trembling. "Amelia grew up with Julian. Her health is frail," Eleanor continued. "We care for her out of kindness. I hope that today, in front of everyone, Clara will apologize to Amelia, and this incident will be closed." All eyes turned to me. Sympathy, ridicule, but mostly curiosity. Julian sat at the main table with a very ugly expression on his face. He apparently hadn't expected Eleanor to air this in public. But he didn't stop her. He just looked at me, as if expecting me to bow my head. "An apology is possible," I said, standing up. A flash of triumph appeared in Amelia's eyes. Eleanor also breathed a sigh of relief. "But first, we need to clarify the situation," I continued. I took out a flash drive and handed it to a hotel staff member. "Would you please play this?" "What are you planning?" Eleanor's face changed. On the large screen, the first video appeared: the underground garage. Julian throwing the jacket in my face, his voice clearly audible. "How many times have I told you not to leave your things in my car?" Then my voice. "It's not mine." And everyone watched as Julian crouched down, picked up the jacket, brushed off the dust, smoothed it, and folded it neatly. The frame froze on him, gently tidying the jacket. A dead silence fell over the hall. "Is this the small misunderstanding Eleanor was talking about?" I asked, looking at the crowd. Amelia turned pale. "Clara, turn it off!" Julian stood up abruptly. I ignored him. The second video from the security cameras at the exhibition. Amelia's assistant placing the shawl in the restoration room, pouring paint on it to frame me. The third recording the audio from the Stonebridge Cafe. Amelia's voice echoed from the speakers. "I just wanted to see what Julian would do. He thought it was your thing and was disgusted. He found out it was mine and immediately picked it up. One word from Julian, and you won't get a single contract in this city." Every phrase was like a slap across the face of the Sterling family. "That's not true. The recording is edited." Amelia jumped up, trembling all over. "I am Miss Hayes's lawyer." Vera stood up, her voice clear. "All original files have been preserved. The security footage from the exhibition, the dashcam footage, the cafe's camera footage, all can be verified. If Miss Vance believes this is a fabrication, she is free to contact the police." Amelia was speechless. Eleanor, pale as death, still tried to hold her ground. "Even if Amelia was at fault, you shouldn't have aired our dirty laundry in public." I opened the last file. On the big screen, 3 years of invoices appeared. Expenses for Eleanor's care, for the mansion's maintenance, for Julian's dry cleaning, for organizing family dinners, down to the last cent. "Is this also dirty laundry?" I looked at Eleanor. "You say the Sterling family never wronged me. Then tell me, why for the past 3 years when you went for checkups, did I have to take time off work to accompany you? When your blood pressure spiked at night, was I the one who drove you to the hospital? When you had an allergic reaction, I compiled a 7-8 page guide for you, and your own son didn't even glance at it?" Eleanor's lips trembled. "Eleanor, what is the meaning of all this?" Grandma slammed her hand on the table. No one answered. I turned to Julian. He stood there, pale as a ghost. "Julian," I said, "you were disgusted by me, my work, my bag, the smell of paper dust on me. But the suits you wear, I took them to be dry cleaned. The medicine your mother takes, I sorted it into pillboxes. Behind every one of your respectable public appearances was me, that same dirty me, cleaning up everything. Now, I'm not cleaning up anymore." A grave silence filled the hall. "Clara," Julian's Adam's apple bobbed. I took the divorce petition from my bag. "I didn't come here today to ask you to sign. I came to notify you that we will meet in court." I placed the petition on the table. Then I bowed to Grandma. "I wish you a long life and good health. I won't be able to visit you often anymore." "Clara," Grandma's eyes reddened. I turned and walked toward the exit. Behind me there was a loud slap. Eleanor had struck Amelia. "You deceived me." Amelia, crying, stammered something in her defense. But Julian wasn't looking at her. He ran out after me and grabbed me at the hotel entrance. "Clara, don't go." It was the first time he had ever pleaded with me like that. But I just looked down at his hand gripping my wrist. "Julian," I said, "aren't you disgusted by me?" His hand froze instantly. I slowly pulled mine free. Don't touch me again. After the party, the gossip about the Sterling family didn't die down for a long time. I wasn't the one spreading it. There were too many guests. No one could stop them. The exhibition officially filed a claim against Amelia. Her assistant confessed that the incident with the shawl had been staged at her direction. The audio and video from the cafe also confirmed the threats. Julian couldn't cover for her. Because this time, Grandma herself had said, "Whoever is at fault will answer for it. We will not cover up such dirty business." When these rumors reached me, I was sitting outside a mediation room at the courthouse. Vera handed me some documents. "Julian has agreed to a settlement divorce, but he wants to meet with you alone. No private meetings." I shook my head. "I figured as much," Vera smirked. 10 minutes later, Julian arrived. He had lost a lot of weight, with dark circles under his eyes. In his hands, he held a garment bag containing that same light gray jacket. It was perfectly clean, without a single crease. He sat down opposite me and pushed the bag forward. "For that day, I'm sorry." I looked at the garment bag. "You should have said those words in the garage." "I know it's late." His voice was hoarse. I remained silent. "I'll deal with Amelia," he continued. "I've already asked her to move out of the Sterling house, and I won't see her again." I looked up at him. If I had heard those words 6 months ago, I would have been hurt, I would have cried, I would have asked why it took him so long to understand. But now, I only felt detachment. "Those are your affairs, Clara." Julian's face paled. He seemed to finally understand that I no longer considered Amelia my rival, because I no longer needed him. "I thought you wouldn't leave," he said. "I thought so too," I nodded. "I didn't mean to treat you that way," he said hastily. "My misophobia is real. After my father died, I couldn't stand any kind of mess or dirt for a long time. You know that." "I know," I looked at him. "That's why I understood you. For 3 years. But Julian, understanding is not a license to inflict pain." His eyes turned red. "I just got used to you," he said. "You got used to me disinfecting myself at the door. You got used to me organizing your life. You got used to me dealing with my own hurt. It's not that you didn't know I was in pain. You just thought that after I got over it, I would always come back." His fingers slowly clenched. "Sign it." I pushed the divorce agreement toward him. He looked down at the document and didn't move for a long time. "Mr. Sterling," Vera reminded him, "all the materials for the reconciliation period are ready." "Can I have one more chance?" he suddenly asked. "No," I shook my head. "Clara. Julian, when that jacket hit me in the face, I gave you a chance." My voice was quiet. In that second after I said, "It's not mine," if the first thing you had asked was if I was hurt, I might have continued to deceive myself, but you didn't. A tear rolled down his cheek. It was the first time I had ever seen Julian cry, but my heart didn't soften. It had been soaked in disinfectant for too long, and no longer wanted to beat so painfully for him. In the end, he signed. When we walked out of the registrar's office, a light drizzle was falling. Julian was still holding the jacket. "Clara," he caught up to me. "Throw this away." "It's not mine." "I had it cleaned," he said with difficulty. I looked at him. "Julian, not everything that was dirty can be washed clean." He froze. I turned and walked down the steps. Eleanor was waiting by a car. She had aged considerably. Seeing me, her eyes reddened. "Clara, I was wrong before. Could you, for the sake of these 3 years, come for dinner?" "Mrs. Sterling, I am no longer part of the Sterling family," I said. Her lips trembled. "I read your care notes. I didn't know. I truly didn't know you did all that." "Now you know, and it's not too late," I said. "Hire a professional caregiver. It will be better for everyone." "Julian hasn't been sleeping at all lately," she said quietly. "He should see a doctor." It wasn't irony. It was sincere advice. But I would no longer be his medicine. I would not be the Sterling family's painkiller. The story with Amelia later came to a conclusion. She publicly apologized, compensated the exhibition for damages, and deleted all the posts that defamed me. She tried to ask for Julian's forgiveness, but Grandma wouldn't let her in the door. Julian never met with her. But that wasn't my victory. My victory was that I didn't go back to him because of his belated epiphany. The rain grew heavier. Vera approached with an umbrella. "Let's go." I nodded. "Clara!" Julian suddenly shouted from behind me. I didn't turn back. "Will I be able to see you again?" His voice trembled. I paused for a moment. "There's no point." I got into the car. Before the window went up, I saw him standing in the rain, still clutching that jacket. It was protected by the garment bag, not a single drop on it. But Julian himself was soaked to the bone. The day I received my divorce certificate, I put it in a drawer, separate from my old wedding ring. I didn't throw the ring away. Not out of sentimentality, but as a reminder that some things that seem perfect are, in fact, suffocating. I threw myself into my work. The antique book restoration project Mr. Harrison had proposed was signed. After the incident at the exhibition, even more people in professional circles learned about me. Some said I had a will of steel. Others said I had disregarded propriety. I didn't care. Propriety bestowed by others can be taken away. What you earn for yourself lasts forever. The studio expanded by one room. Leo handled visitor intake, and I focused on restoration. A new sign appeared on the wall. Renaissance Restoration Studio. On the opening day, Grandma sent an orchid. The card read, "Old things meet a new spring, and so do people." I placed the orchid on the windowsill. Eleanor also came once. She didn't enter, just stood at the door with a box of pastries in her hands. I baked them myself. I don't know if you'll like them. I took them, but didn't invite her in. She looked at me with guilt in her eyes. Clara, I used to always say you were unclean. In reality, my heart was the unclean one. I said nothing. She gave a crooked smile, tears rolling down her cheeks. You don't have to forgive me. I just wanted to say I'm sorry in person. I heard you, I said. That was enough. Forgiveness is not a mandatory outcome of every apology. Sometimes, just being heard is the highest form of courtesy I can offer. Julian came later than I expected. It was a bright, sunny afternoon. I was restoring a wedding dress from the Art Nouveau period. The white silk had yellowed, the edges were torn, but the embroidery was still beautiful. Clara, Mr. Sterling is here. Leo entered quietly. Without looking up from my needle, I said, let him wait outside. 5 minutes later, I went out. Julian was standing by the display window, looking at the partially restored wedding dress. He was dressed very neatly, with no gloves on his hands. This would have been impossible before. A beautiful studio, he said when he saw me. Thank you. He was silent for a moment. I've been seeing a therapist lately. That's good. I nodded. The therapist says my mysophobia is largely tied to a desire for control. He gave a bitter smile. Before, when you said it wasn't mysophobia, I wouldn't admit it. I remained silent. He looked at me, and his gaze was filled with many belated emotions. Guilt, regret, frustration, and a timid hope. Clara, I didn't come to ask you to come back, he said. I just wanted to return something to you. He took out a small box. Inside were the cufflinks I had given him. The unopened box was finally open. I never wore them before, he said. Not because I didn't like them, but because I thought your gifts were too old-fashioned, not for me. He lowered his head, his voice growing hoarse. Later, I realized I was the one who was old-fashioned. I looked at the cufflinks. I had made them myself from a small piece of old silver left over from a restoration, polishing it for a long time. I used to think he didn't open the box because he was busy. I later realized that for things that are not valued, there is always an excuse. I didn't take them. Julian, I don't take back gifts. His eyes reddened. Then can I keep them? As you wish. He stood there for a long time. Finally, he asked, Are you happy now? I looked out the window. Sunlight fell on the restoration table, dust motes dancing in the beams. In the past, seeing dust, Julian would have immediately frowned. Now, I looked at them, and only felt a sense of reality. I'm at peace, I said. Happiness might take time, but peace is already very good. No one calls me in the middle of the night to rush to a hospital. No one is disgusted by my work. No one pressures me with someone else's tears. No one tells me that being sensible means being at fault. Julian nodded. He turned and walked away. At the door, he turned back. Clara, I'm sorry. Uh-huh, I said. He waited for a few seconds, as if hoping to hear something more, but I said nothing else. He finally understood. This was it. Not every I'm sorry is followed by an it's okay. Sometimes it's just followed by I know. After he left, Leo peeked out from behind a shelf. Clara, are you not sad at all? I thought for a moment. A little. He looked at me with concern. But not much, I smiled. We laughed together. That afternoon, I continued restoring the wedding dress. The needle passed through the old silk, the threads slowly pulling together. Restoration isn't about returning to a pristine state. It's about being able to stand tall again, while still bearing the scars. Just like me. In the evening, before closing, I received a text from an unknown number. Clara, I'm moving abroad. You won. I didn't have to guess to know it was Amelia. I didn't reply. She used the word won incorrectly. I was never trying to defeat her. I had just finally stopped losing to the past version of myself. I turned off my phone and locked the studio door. The streetlights came on outside. My reflection appeared in the display window. Without a wedding ring, without the status of Mrs. Sterling, and without someone's jacket flying at my face. Just me, clean, whole, and free.